Hello, everybody. Colin Tansley from Intellect. This is episode number 10 of the Ice Bath podcast, and I'm delighted today to have with me Julia Chin from Singapore, a country of...
Hello,
Yeah,
Colin.
hiya. Good to see you, and thank you for taking the time out.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, you're very welcome. Um, you are based in Singapore, and as I understand, you've got over 25 years of experience in sort of AML regulation, financial crime, not committing it, actually tackling it. And we're going to talk about a number of things. We had a brief chat beforehand, but I know that customer due diligence is a passion of yours, like mine. We often interact on LinkedIn, and that's how we got to meet each other, didn't we?
Yeah.
Um, so, your company's called J4th Solutions. Do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about that and about yourself?
Okay, so thanks again, Colin. J4th stands for the four J's in my house, basically me and my three kids. All
Oh,
of
right.
us are
Okay.
J.
Yeah.
And it was set up during the time where I lost my job. And that's when I asked the kids, what name shall I give it? And started with J4.
Yeah.
Since I was right, and my son said, "Hey, mom, it should be J4th because fourth means you go forth. Sounds like you go forth."
Brilliant.
And we will definitely go forth. And so that was how the name was formed. And I guess in the last 2 years, the name just got stuck.
Brilliant. That's really good, actually. I like the fourth side of it as well. Yeah, that's great. And so, do you work solely for yourself now as a consultant?
I do most of the work. I Okay, so I work as a consultant, and I am also fractional compliance officer for a company in Singapore.
Okay.
And then what we do is a lot of advisory work around this area. So yeah, that's currently what the J4 Solutions does.
Right. Brilliant. Now, we had a recent sort of bit to and fro on LinkedIn about common sense being applied to due diligence, didn't we? Because
Yeah.
I think we both share that view. Sometimes people make it overcomplicated and they don't need to. What's your sense about the way that sort of financial institutions deal with due diligence at the moment?
I think the amount of information is overwhelming, especially where you get AI to identify and to analyze the data. You just get too much of information out there. And I believe the other concern that I feel is, which is why we want to see at JForce, what we want to look into is a more human-centered approach to compliance, where we build compliance culture that protects and empowers people. Because a lot of people come in straight from school, from the university, they get hired into the KYC jobs and they are given a checklist to say, here you go, here's a checklist, make sure you have this. And if it meets this checklist, therefore you can pass to the next checker to do it.
Yeah,
And this is where the context is lost.
yeah,
That's again back to the story of why we say we need to talk a lot more about the common sense, because
yeah,
the context is lost when you just base on the checklist.
absolutely. And I train due diligence investigations, and I'm always keen to say that, treat due diligence as an investigation, which comes back to that sort of common sense thing.
Yeah.
Do you think there is an over-reliance on technology nowadays to do this?
There is, I believe, an over-reliance on technology that people think that they can just actually there have been a couple of clients of mine that I've asked them questions relating to their internal control, how they do their non-face-to-face onboarding. This is from the fintech. Actually, couple, not just one, but two of them came back to say, you don't have to worry about this because the system takes care of it. Uh, and I went, okay, so who is the one who set up the system?
Yeah,
Who configure it for you?
yeah,
What are the rules? Do you know them? Is it explainable? How are you going to explain to the regulators? You can't tell the regulator that, oh, the AI says I don't have to do the due diligence.
mm, yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and you bang on with that. This, and I do think there's a disconnect between the people who buy the systems and the people that actually do the job sometimes. That you may well get a very slick salesman or saleswoman saying that this is the solution that's going to for all your problems, and we guarantee. And then things go wrong when the regulator comes in, because we do see some very, very big companies getting fined, not
Mhm.
necessarily for money laundering, for just non-compliance, and they're the companies you would expect to have the better IT system. So, what's the sort of position on training then, where you are in Singapore, in relation to due diligence? Is there a program or?
Well, I think that my training is not just in Singapore, but across Southeast
Okay.
Asia,
Yeah.
typically,
Yeah.
because I'm multilingual, so it
Right.
helps me that I'm able to also deliver training in other languages as well.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of demand around the region to talk in this area. One thing is that when I realized that, this actually came from one of the participants when I was in Nepal. He
Yeah.
said to me, he said, look, if you share something with me that I can easily read off Google, I'm walking out of here.
Yeah.
So I told him, I say, don't worry about that. I am not going to give you something off Google. What then what actually motivated me from that point in time, which was about 2 years ago,
Yeah.
was that, okay, now I need to look at it from a very human lens. I
Mm.
need to look at it and see, yes, we are doing due diligence. So, say for example, e there was a news just recently about baby trafficking
Yeah.
between Indonesia and Singapore. But look at it from the perspective that what are we looking for?
Mm.
What is the underlying issue? We humanize it to help people to see, look, it is not just about tracing the money, but think about what is going on.
Yeah.
Why are people motivated to do it?
Yeah.
So it becomes when you humanize it, then whoever who's doing the checklist
Mm.
uh, will look at questioning whether the checklist is sufficient or they should be doing more.
No, that's really good. I mean, I'm always keen to sort of talk about financial crime prevention. I've heard compliance officers, and I'm sure you have, say, look, I'm not a police officer. It's not my
Mm.
job to detect crime. But yeah, they have a point, but they're the same sort of people that will complain about, drugs and guns and crime being rampant on the streets. We've all got social responsibility, and you've got an ideal opportunity when you're sat in that chair of compliance, for want of a better word, when you're doing your due diligence to actually make a huge difference.
Yeah.
So, is it about knowledge of subjects? I mean, you mentioned, I mean, human trafficking, all that sort of stuff is massive, isn't it? And I don't think people really get it. I think people, certainly where I am in the UK, I don't think people are switched onto it at all. I just think it's something that happens elsewhere, basically. Um,
It doesn't happen with me.
no, no, exactly. Because you
Yeah.
understand the subject, don't you? You're passionate.
Yeah.
It's about understanding that impact, isn't it? About this
Yeah.
actually hurts society massively, and it impacts people. Uh,
Yeah.
Probably some of the most vulnerable members of society as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that some people are too far removed from it. So, but how do we change that?
Well, I think basically is to start getting people to understand, to appreciate what is around them. Well, what is in UK is not something that I'm familiar with, but
Mm.
that's why, when it comes to customer due diligence or
Yeah,
counterparty due diligence, it has a lot to do with the ability to contextualize.
yeah,
So I would come from an Asian context, especially where we are having a lot of issues with job scams and all.
yeah,
And Asia Pacific is in a very, very unique environment where we have both sides of the coin of a scam compound.
yeah,
You have the people that are being exploited because they're poor, they're desperate for jobs, and so they get trafficked into the scam compound to scam people. And then you also have those people within the region as well as outside of the region that are able to that lose money due to the scams, right? So
Yeah.
there are all these things, and you just look at it from the perspective that we can just be walking on the street and having that awareness that
Mm.
one person that you see in a bus who is looking really down,
Yeah.
could it that potentially that the person is very anxious? What could be the situation? I mean, I'm exaggerating it because I don't think we'll be watching the guy sitting next to me and wondering what the guy is thinking about. But having having that awareness would help us to then contextualize and see things in a different way. It's just like normally I don't notice a car, right? I don't
Yeah.
notice any particular car, but the
Yeah.
moment when we decide we want to buy a car, we start to notice cars on the road.
Yeah.
And then if you decide on a color of car,
Yeah.
you notice every car that you see is blue.
Yeah.
That that kind of awareness, it starts to come in. I don't know from a behavioral point of view what that is called, but it's
Yeah.
the awareness is what helps you to notice things.
Yeah, no, no, you're right. And there is a psychological term for that, and I can't remember it either. But I remember the red car side of things. If you're just going to see more of them, I'm sure somebody will chip in on the comments and tell us what that is. But no, you're right. It is about. I suppose it's making the right level of noise in the right areas. Um, but I'm always keen from a CDD investigations point of view, or an EDD, because that's what we do most of, is to make
Oh,
sure
pet
we.
peeve.
Yeah,
That word enhanced.
it does. My honestly, I'm not keen on those terms, and I actually think we should start using high risk due diligence, and that might get it across this in a slightly better way. But they really shouldn't be put in boxes because the level of risk should be down to the client and the person doing the due diligence to sort of work together with. But I just think jurisdictional risk is something I see getting missed all the time.
Yes. You know, on the point about enhanced due diligence being put in a box, you would not believe this, but it happened to me.
Mm.
Someone reached out to me to ask me
Yeah,
if I have a checklist for enhanced due
yeah.
diligence. So I think to all the listeners out there, please, please don't use the checklist for enhanced due diligence.
No, absolutely not. I mean, I've had clients contact me and say, "What systems have you got to do the due diligence for us?" And well, listen. Look, systems are just a small part of what I do. I'm a career investigator. I will examine and investigate and analyze and disseminate a report that's of value to you, or So it's not just about, as you said, the checklist side of things, because that's meaningless in terms of, well, certainly from a regulator's point of view. It needs to be something I would always say it needs to be an intelligent product based on
Which,
it.
which, which is why during my training session, there is this term that I call it the three C's of human superpower.
All right.
The first C is compassion. The
Yeah.
compassion is actually to be able to empathize and put yourself in the shoes and
Yeah.
contextualize. The
Yeah.
second C is curiosity.
Yeah. Like
The
that.
third C is creativity.
Yeah. Oh, I love them. I'm making a note because I think that is compassion, curiosity, creativity.
There's actually a fourth C that we talk about,
Go
the
on.
common sense.
Oh, yeah. Definitely factor that in. Common sense. Yeah, they are. I mean, if people can stick to those four, they're going to come up with a better product, make better decisions. People are going to be safer. The regulator's going to be happier, and hopefully, the world's going to be a safer place because that's what it's all about, isn't it?
It is, we would like, I, I'm sure a lot of us would like to leave this world a better place than where we came in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. And similar to you, all the work I've ever done has really been about protecting people or things, and that's what it's all about. And there are people I think get drawn to this type of profession for those very reasons. Um, you mentioned to me prior to starting the call something called Pulse. Do you want to talk about that? I'm sure the listeners would love to hear about this too.
Yeah, this will be the first time we talk about Pulse in
Okay.
public.
Okay.
The project actually has been in discussion for the past 2 years, and so now we're ready to roll out. And the Pulse is actually a framework of three interconnected pillars on how we can build compliance culture in an organization. Pulse stands for people, the
Yeah.
individual employee as the ultimate decision maker and the first line of defense.
Yeah.
Undertaking is the firm's genuine commitment to integrity. Now, look, it's obviously I wanted to use the word you,
Yeah.
the letter U, but the undertaking is a much stronger word because it is a commitment to
Yeah.
execute.
Yeah.
So without you have the commitment, you have the plan, but you don't execute, it's nothing.
Yeah.
So undertaking is the second word. The
Yeah.
third word is leadership. And leadership here talks about who the people are who champion ethical behavior and set the tone from the top.
Yeah.
Structure is about governance, the processes, accountability of the systems that translate those intent into action. So we need to have the proper governance structure, the target operating model, and all
Yeah.
that in place.
Yeah.
And the ecosystem is the one that I think, in recent times, there's systems thinking has become more popular.
Yeah.
We talk about a proactive management of regulator, uh, technology, geopolitical forces, and looking at it from a system, an entire ecosystem perspective, than to look at things in silos. So that's how we get PULSE.
That's brilliant. I love it. And you've been working on that for some time. You think you said,
Yeah, did some research on it and was contemplating whether we should start with newsletter or whether we should write a book or we should create training programs for it. But then I think those things will probably have to come later. But I think generally is to get people to have that sort of we are in a very, very difficult time now, and there's a sense of urgency for us to see how we can move compliance forward
yeah.
into a more common sense approach,
Mhm.
into a more human approach, rather than and especially also because you mentioned about reliance on technology.
Yeah.
Let's try and take a step back from there.
Yeah. And, we've got AI being thrown at us and we're using it in our software, but we're very, very careful to say that it's just part of the solution. Uh,
I use AI a lot too because, AI helps us to analyze data much faster. It gives me the result to the data much,
yeah.
much faster. You still need to have the human in the loop. You still need to have the people who
Yeah.
can contextualize it.
Yeah, and it comes down to questions as well, which is the
Yep,
common sense side of it. But you know, just going back to Pulse briefly, the leadership is key, isn't it?
it
Because
is.
that
It's the tone from the top.
turn from the top, absolutely, and that drives the culture. And the companies I've been in to train, and I'm sure the same. You just get a better vibe when I've had the main bosses come down and open the course. I've had there's in Malta, for example, where I go several times, I've been several times rather, I've had managers in the training, and it makes such a difference because you can see the staff are not scared to sort of talk about stuff. So
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
quite clear that there is the culture is quite different. I've been to other places where the reverse is true.
Yeah. I
Uh,
think the biggest example about leadership that went wrong was Enron.
yeah,
Where they have all these beautiful mission visions on the walls and so what, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's got to be more than statements on a wall. It's actually got to be, actions speak louder than words, don't they?
Yes.
But no, that has been a fascinating 25 or so minutes through the world of due diligence, and I've really enjoyed it, and I'm sure that people will listen intently to what you have to say. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way, Julia?
Well, I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. The other thing is you can get us through the J4th Solutions website. That's
Yeah.
probably the easiest rather than for me rattling off my email address
No, no, no.
that nobody can catch. So it's probably the best is probably through LinkedIn or through the website.
Okay, so what I'll do is when I do the video, I'll put your LinkedIn profile into the comments if that's okay.
Yep, that's fine.
Super.
Absolutely fine.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank
That's
you
been
so much for having me.
much enjoyed. Very, very much enjoyed that. So, thank you, everybody. And that's episode 10 in the bag.